All right, so good afternoon. I'm Josh Sun, along with John Law, and we're with the Department of Planning and Development. Welcome to the April 12th, 2023 meeting of the Committee on Design. Please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to DPD's YouTube page. To our esteemed committee, thank you for volunteering your time to be a part of this advisory group. For the members of the public who are joining us, what you will see today and at future Committee on Design meetings are projects currently under review by DPD staff. The committee is a voluntary advisory body of design professionals that provide their expertise on design issues. The committee is not a substitute for Plan Commission, as it is not a forum for public debate, nor is the advice of the committee legally binding. It is the hope that today's discourse will lead to recommendations that will elevate the design excellence of the city of Chicago. The recommendations will be forwarded to DPD staff for consideration as they review these projects for Plan Commission and subsequent approvals. All right, before we get to the agenda, to members of the public, you are welcome to begin submitting comments and questions through the Q&A box. Committee members are invited to review this information during and after each presentation and incorporate the comments into the discussion. We will not be reviewing questions or comments from the public individually, but will be recording them for use when reviewing the project. So we will now move on to the agenda. And then whoever is handling the presentation, if you want to go ahead and pull it up while I go over the description, that should work. Hub 32, the winning submission for the Lake and Kedzie RFQ is a proposed 75-foot tall, 7-story mixed-use development. The project comprises 63 residential dwelling units, 5,600 square feet of ground floor commercial space, a community room, courtyard, and a rooftop terrace. The building is clad with brick, wood siding, dark metal panels, and anodized finished aluminum window shrouds. To any committee members who are associated with this project, if you have not yet, please recuse yourself at this time and for the duration of the review for this project. To the presenters, please clearly state your name and your relation to the project prior to speaking. You have 20-25 minutes to present your proposal. Committee members, please hold your comments and questions until after the presentation. You may go ahead and proceed with the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and kick it off. My name is Greg Olson. I'm a regional vice president with Michaels Development. It's good to see some friendly faces out there. On behalf of the development team of KMW Communities, Michaels Development, and True Delta, we'd like to thank you for having us. I'm joined by my colleague Alice Mwinsey, Bill Williams from KMW Communities, and Adam Criven from KMW Communities. Looks like Jim from True Delta's not joining us. So as you mentioned, Hub 32 is equitable transit-oriented development at the corner of the southwest corner of Lake and Kedzie and East Garfield Park. And we've put together a mixed-use development that we're really excited about. And I'll turn it over to our design team. I think you guys know Mark Peters from Studio Dwell and Larry Scarpa from Brooks and Scarpa. So Mark and Larry, if you guys want to walk everybody through it, it'd be great.
So just Mark's gonna kind of take the lead, and I'll just add in the interest of time here. So it goes expeditiously, and then, be primarily available for questions. So Mark.
Okay, just making sure everybody can see the screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So my name is Mark Peters. I'm principal at Studio Dwell Architects in Chicago, working with Brooks and Scarpa on the Hub 32 project. Looking at the urban morphology of this project, we were looking at the design principles, the equity, innovation, sense of place, environmental stewardship, and community engagement, and making sure that we could apply all of these design principles to this site. We were constantly trying to look to the community and get feedback from the community and see what would be best for this site. One of the things.
Mark, can I pause there? I think we're seeing James's screen, right? Do you want to share your screen, or are you going to direct him on when to change slides?
Either or.
Do you have the presentation, Mark, of it available? Because it might be easier if you advance.
I'll stop sharing.
Okay, let's see. am I sharing my screen now?
You should share, Mark, if you have it.
All right, sorry, I thought I was sharing. Okay. All right. Now is it
Yep, now we're good. Thank
now
you.
it's sharing? Okay, sorry. All right. Okay, so we were on the guiding principles for design on this slide. And then I was jumping to the next one here. So one of the things we looked at was the Chicago typology, the courtyard apartment, and as one of our influences, and trying to use that concept and maybe elevate it up to another level. And then just kind of looking at the building, not as an object in the city, but rather as this integral part of the city, and kind of connecting all of these different pieces around. And then, of course, you know, we're trying to embrace the community, looking at, you know, different things. We talked about a quilting concept where we were gonna kind of mesh the community elements together and come up with some sort of patterning, you know, based on quilting and this idea of kind of joining the different pieces together. Some of the main issues that we heard from the community were support the local business owners, you know, kind of create opportunities for small businesses, create culturally relevant creative spaces. So inviting places and spaces and maybe opportunities for local artists, create a beautiful, safe, welcoming green gateway to our community, create support small families. So in that respect, we were including a lot more 2 and 3 bedroom units where families could reside. And then finally, welcoming an accessible, inclusive community. So creating these places where you could gather and you could linger in spaces. So with the plaza, we've got areas where you can dine and just hang out.
And in particular, creating some, you know, tenants that would be compatible with the hub right across the street.
Right. So, so this is a site context map. So our site is in purple. And so this is just kind of showing how we're connecting to the different elements in the community. So the most important element is the hatchery, which is across the street. But we are connecting with the Green Line, Marshall Metro High School, the Beadler Elementary School, Garfield Park. So we've got the Green Line that goes right downtown, and we have these great connections throughout this area here. And so creating this hub that will kind of maybe pull all of these things together. Here were 4 of the studies that we looked at. Just briefly, the Kedzie corridor talked about bringing commercial along that, you know, Kedzie corridor from the freeway up to Sacramento. You know, some of these others we're talking about how we can get the community more involved with some of the development and helping community understand what the impact of some of these developments that are on the site. And then here we've got a couple site photos. So site 3 is to the south of us, and we're site 2. So you can see it's pretty open around there. We've got a 6-story residential apartment building behind us. And then these are shots looking north over our site towards the hatchery and then towards the Green Line. And then on this one, again, the context overview, we're just looking at the different elements that create this, you know, that are part of this complex, right? So we've got, you know, the retail aspect, the restaurant aspect, connection to the hatchery. We've got different rooftop terraces, the concept of that courtyard is integrated in there, and different community rooms throughout. And here's the site context plan. So obviously we're in the middle right here. We've got site 3 that was to the south, and then there was another site 1 that was across to the north, across the tracks. And so I think, you know, what we're looking to do here is make the connection to the hatchery that's right down here. So kind of creating this open plaza here that kind of, you know, opens up onto this plaza. And then, you know, maybe in the future on site 3, this plaza kind of continues here. And so kind of creating this open gathering area within this intersection here. And then these are some of our early masses, some sketches and some modeling that we were looking at. I think from the beginning, we were looking at doing a taller element that was, you know, closer to the tracks, and then, you know, some sort of a lower scaled element that was continued down to the other buildings to scale down and fit better there. And again, here are some other study models, and here's some inspirational photographs. Here's a project that Brooks and Scarpa did, California. So you can see, you know, kind of incorporating this central courtyard, and it's elevated, you know, so everybody within it can enjoy this, you know, nice green space in here. And then some of these things, now we're starting to explore some of the green spaces, how they can potentially move around. And then here were some early studies for facades, you know, trying to see how some of the massing and some of the materials and shadows kind of, you know, moving around, and how they affected the different views and, you know, different compositions, you know, within the place. So
Yeah, a lot of this building type suffers from a lack of depth. So
Yeah.
we have budgets, but we're always trying to find ways to give it a little bit more richness and shadow and light. So we would continue to do that to kind of avoid something being very flat.
Right. And then here, so this is some of the getting into some of the rendering. So this is a rendering taken from the southeast side, southeast corner. So you're looking at the plaza right in here. So we're looking at 2 different massings here, beginning to break this apart. So kind of a brick mass over here, and then we've got a metal element over here. But just seeing how these 2 elements can kind of tie together and kind of develop this big picture and create this sense of place. And then this is looking from the east, looking west. So you can begin to see the carved out courtyard that we have in the middle here, the stepped up terraces, roof terrace here. This terrace at the 3rd floor wraps all the way around. And then we've got a lot of open activity on the street, you know, carved out area here. And then we've got glass storefront that's running the whole base. And in this shot, we're just showing some potential future buildings to get an idea of how things might mass out in this area. Similar shot as before. And you can see some of the, you know, this is a shot up at the rooftop. So you can see the kind of public space, or, you know, space for the residents that we'll have up on the rooftop here.
Yeah, we want to make the street as open as we can. These illustrate some garage doors, you know, so hopefully we'll be able to have that open, even some artwork on the underside that, you know, involves the community as well. So
Right.
the street's super important here, and we want to just make sure it connects out and you know, really becomes more community space.
And then here's another blow up of that. So again, just, you know, how does this building interact with the street level? So, you know, we've got, you know, storefront here, we've got, you know, carved out area over here. So there's a lot of activity on the street, and it kind of engages the street pretty well.
And be out of the rain or heat what have you, so you have a little covered area as well.
And that's blow up of the courtyard on the upper level. You know, and we're exploring areas here. There might, we're showing some stairs that goes up to a different level here. So we're kind of trying to create these different levels where there's exterior spaces for all the residents. And then getting into the floor plans. So first floor, ground floor. So in the pink are our retail spaces. So we're showing 3 different retail spaces. And they'll range from 2,500 to 1,000 square feet. So these are these opportunities where people that are coming from the hatchery or something like this can open up a smaller restaurant or a cafe or something like that. And so maybe there's that, hopefully there's this connection between the hatchery and then the end result of them opening up a place where they can show their what they've created. We've got some bikes in the corner here, got a lobby, you enter through here, lobby here. Got a management office here in blue. And then we're showing some parking in the back here. I think we've got about 15, 16 spaces. So I think it's about 25% of the number of units.
We got a car blocking everyone in too there.
Yeah,
We've
sorry.
had that for quite some time. We'll eventually clear the driveway.
And then looking at the plans, so these are just schematic demising plans for now. So this is the second floor. So again, it's a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. We're about 20% 1 bedrooms. I think we're about 55% 2 bedrooms and you know, another, whatever the remainder is on 3 bedrooms. So you know, we're kind of mixing it up a little bit. So the majority of our units are going to try to be 2-bedroom units.
You have about 10 minutes
Sounds
left.
like you're still on CODs.
Okay. Up on the second floor, or this is the 3rd floor level. So again, you can see the mix of units in here. So this has the courtyard up here. And then we're going to have some community room, fitness, lounge space in this area. So, you know, it can connect to the courtyard and the terrace that's there. And then hopefully, you know, we'll have a couple of units that'll be off the terrace here. But this is where the train is at in this area. So we pulled it back a little bit to help the noise. And, you know, we may reconfigure it where some of the community space faces more of the L line. And then getting up to the 4th floor. So 4th, 5th, they start to begin to be the same type of floor plate. This is the higher 7-story mass over here, and then this is the 5-story mass over here. And then we've got some, you know, areas that bridge across and connect these two. And then you can begin to see we have some private terraces for some of the units. And then up on the 5th floor, again, some private terraces up in the corners, you know, kind of creating this, we're kind of opening it up as it goes up to this courtyard in here. And maybe there's another private little courtyard up here. And then getting up to the 6th floor. So at this level, this is the roof deck up here. So this will be another community space. So we'll have a small community room here, and then we'll have open seating and some other activities up in this area. And then this is the tower going up on this side. And then up to the 7th floor, again, the tower up here, and then it kind of breaks apart and we have some smaller terrace. So, so this is a building section that we have. So just kind of showing some of the relationships. So this is kind of cut through the center, the courtyard center. So this is kind of lower in this area. And then you can kind of see the 7-story building beyond. And again, this is just kind of talking, you know, this slide is just talking about some of our strategies and topics, you know, for the rooftop terraces, you know, looking at doing, you know, LEED gold would be our strategy on this. And just showing all the adjacencies to the hatchery. And then as far as open space and landscaping, so on the first floor, the building is, going to be, it's set back a little bit here, and then back in here, it's really open, set back and open to create this nice plaza. So we want to create, nice open space here. This also give us an opportunity, maybe we can create some street landscaping here. It's a pretty narrow street right now, so we'd like to pull the building back and kind of create some landscaping there and have it wrap around. And then again, up on the third floor, we're hoping that this roof terrace can be a nice, nice green lush terrace that, not only the residents can enjoy, but, it also you can see it and feel it down at the street level. And you'll be able to see this at the track level as well. And then our other open landscaping space would be, of course, on the rooftop of the lower level of the lower portion building. And then in terms of materials, we're kind of looking at this in the two main materials for the building would be, this would be a brick masonry, maybe a Norman size brick, and this element going across here and then wrapping around the bottom. The tower over here would be a pre-finished metal aluminum, and then we'll have some accent points in here that we'll have to figure out what that is. Wood, some sort of manufactured element that looks like wood. It could be a tile, it could be a metal, but something that kind of separates these two as kind of a third accent material. And so, and the brick, we're looking at a lighter brick, so it's kind of playing off of the old gray stones that were in the area. And then this is we're looking to, at a minimum, go for a LEED Gold on this project. So this is just kind of a quick checklist of what we're looking at doing. And then here's another map talking about just the distances from our site. For how close the bus is, how close the train is, how close walking is to Garfield Park. So it's a very, walkable site, and there's a lot of things that are close to it. And that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Committee members. Oops, sorry. The floor is now yours for comments and questions to the applicant team. Please raise your Zoom hand and we will call on you. Thanks. Yes, Reed.
So
I just wanted to congratulate everybody. This is a great looking project. It's very thoughtful. This isn't followed up with any kind of comma, but I just want to start out with that it's a pleasure to see something that's this thoughtfully worked out. I've got a few questions for you. They're relatively minor, I think, but can we jump off of this slide and go back to the kind of main elevation study that we saw several times? I guess it's looking north, close. Oh, keep going.
I think the straight on one
That
right up there.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that guy.
Ellen? Yeah.
First was just a technical question on the little building on the left, the smaller part.
Mhm.
I didn't. We moved through it too quickly. And I didn't pay attention. Is there an elevator in that support part of the building as well?
Not yet.
Okay, but there will
Will
be,
be.
right?
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, it's gotta be
um,
accessible.
All right,
There,
good.
there
I
are
just-
some exiting and some circulation things that we're looking at,
Good.
right? Yep.
All right, you just took off my next question then. We're gonna skip the exiting question. All right, good. That's great. The second, but sort of the more substantive, I really like the way you're articulating the two towers separately. And you're basically making, in case nothing else is built around it, a little city within the city. And I think that that's done nicely. I do wonder whether we may be getting into a point where there's almost too many materials on the facade, particularly I don't know what they are, but the kind of golden colored stripes along the curtain wall, on the glass curtain wall, I should say.
Mhm.
I'm not sure where they come from, but if you look at that, if you look at the golden stripes, the curtain wall, the brick, whatever is the material that's surrounding the punch windows, the projecting windows, the brown frame, and then there's something in the brown frame that looks like vertical striping in there. I'm not sure what those are, those panels. I'm up to 6 different materials already, and I'm kind of wondering whether it might benefit from a little bit less active material palette, to call out the separation of the buildings more.
It's,
By the
it's a
time you add all those
tactic.
palettes, you get much
It's a
more going on.
tactic we use because budget always works that out. And, Greg will be happy with a few materials as opposed if we started there, he'd be happier with a few materials minus a couple. So, but I think a
Aha.
lot of that will sort itself out. Yeah, I agree. And, it's a lot of this is going to be refined and change. And I think it's going to get a little simpler in many ways.
That's great.
As we deal with the budget too. So that's probably going to be one of the first things is to where do we consolidate, but we can certainly do that.
I remember where I found my 2 other materials, the roof terrace building and the number 32. Now we're up to 8. But all right, I hear you saying you're already on that. The other thing that I wanted to bring up again starts with a compliment. I love this at street level, and I think the corner in particular, in this image, the left-hand corner, the main corner, yeah, right there. That's terrific. Really well done. That makes community almost by itself, even if you never had a bench or a chair in it. It just creates an opening in the fabric. And Chicago's fabric is often very dense. It's not dense right at this place. We're creating density, but it still is a great welcoming gesture, and I think that's fantastic. And congratulations. Along the same lines, I like the fact that you've managed to get a roof terrace in there. There's a lot of things that make this look and feel like high-end housing in a neighborhood that doesn't often get to see that sort of thing, and it really brings a strong architectural character to it. I do have one small concern up on your roof terrace, not your roof terrace, sorry, your kind of your 3rd floor terrace, or your 3rd floor terrace. There's a lot of outdoor space here for a climate that's cold 5 months a year, 4 months at least. Maybe with global warming, it'll stay at 4. And not that I would want you to take this away. I'm not arguing for that, but I'd like to see you address a little bit, maybe in a drawing, what is that like on February 9th in any given year? And what can you do with that outdoor space to give it year-round activation? And I don't need to suggest to you, but I can think of quite a number of things that you could do there. And so I think if you could at least give a little indication of how some of those outdoor spaces might have year-round use. I don't think they all have to. I don't think they all need to be addressed that way. Certainly not the private terraces, of course not. But the public ones, if you could, and it doesn't have to be everything in the public terrace has to be dual functioning. But if there are some places where we could have some great approaches to winter outside, because Chicagoans like to go outside in the winter. They really do, but they don't want to stand around in a windblown, dark, cold corner either. And so how can you give them a little of that? And that would be my other comment on this.
Yeah,
Great.
we would have to do that. And I think it's just smart to do that. And, you know, we really didn't have enough time to answer all of that, but certainly we should do that. One fundamental thing that the space in between does is it gives the units a little bit more breathing room. You
Yeah,
know, so more people get more views, they get a little bit more space, you get less dark corridors, blah, blah, blah. So from that perspective, it's kind of a win, but I agree too. We need to think about all seasons, so at least it doesn't just look like a dead zone. You know,
yeah. I mean,
in the winter.
you've got some winter indoor winter shared spaces up there on your roof deck. You know,
Yeah.
your shared common space on the left. And as I started out saying, I actually think that the overall form of the building and the creation of that central external courtyard is great. It's just more a matter of addressing how you can give that extra life. But this is a really, really thoughtful, smart, good-looking project.
Thanks. Well, you know, those are really important comments, and we do need to take those into considerations, make it even better.
Mhm.
All right, Catherine, I think you're next.
Okay, thanks. I agree with Reed. I commend you on this and congratulations on winning this site. I have two site concerns, which I think this building can be a real opportunity for this neighborhood. And if you just look at this building in a couple of different ways, my first main concern is Lake Street, that there are no windows or there's no activation right now on Lake Street. And this building's pretty tight up against Lake Street, and there's some L structure that goes to the sidewalk there. I'm wondering if maybe you can jump to the site plan or the first floor plan. I wonder, like, is it maybe possible to switch the bike room with the retail, or maybe even the bike and the management space? So there's some activation right there on the corner. And, you know, the hatchery, it looks like the hatchery just has all solid wall almost also on Lake Street. So now we're almost creating 2 blocks worth of solid wall along Lake Street. So that's my main concern. I would love to see the structure drawn on here, and I know you'll get to it. And I mean, Greg's developing most of Lake Street as it is, so I know he knows what to do there. I think the other opportunity you have is on Maple. Maple's a really odd, kind of neglected street as you move west, right? There's some weird building typologies, some townhouses that face, they're turned sideways, and then there's more denser affordable housing. I just wonder if this can just kind of wrap the corner just a little bit more to draw Maple down to Kedzie. I really, Maple just always feels so neglected right through there. And I think this building has an opportunity to talk to Maple and bring that residential street over to Kedzie. And maybe some of those buildings will change and become a little bit more typical typology instead of some odder buildings that don't
Catherine,
really.
are you saying the kitchen? Is that what you're referring to? How it hits the street?
Maybe
No,
open it
if
up
you go
more.
west on Maple, if you go west, there are a couple of affordable housing projects larger, and then there's some townhouses
Right.
that are turned sideways. And they really,
With respect to our design, you're kind of saying it ends at the what we're showing is the restaurant there.
yeah, so there's kitchen and trash
Yeah.
that face. And, this is not, I just think your building can actually start to embrace Maple a little bit
Yeah.
more, change the
I mean, I
direction.
think one of the things Bill and Greg and our development team, they've been very pushing for, like, incubator type of businesses, to people who come from the hatchery to start up. So, where we're showing kitchen, that could even be like even a window where you buy food from. It's like we have a bad placeholder, a blank wall. I don't think that was necessarily our intent. But we can certainly, I think, activate that. We just finished a very similar building in Santa Monica where our nonprofit group brought in a community-based, it's almost like the hatchery into the building, but they serve and they have a lot of small shops. But I think, I don't know, Bill, maybe you can jump in here what your thought was there.
Yes, our thought was to create some sort of feeder or graduating space for folks at the hatchery. And when I look at Maple 2, it's almost, do we activate Maple at the expense of Kedzie? Do we activate Lake at the expense of Kedzie? And so I don't know if we can solve all those with this project, maybe as the subsequent buildings come on. But as it is situated now, the goal was kind of to face and connect with Kedzie and the hatchery. And I think as we continue to develop this site plan or this building, it probably will be pulled off of Lake a bit. And that'll give us some opportunities to do something on Lake Street. Because as it is now, it is really tight. And that was the team's concern. It's, it's right on the, on the property line, right up to the curb. And so we were talking about this yesterday. We need to consider pulling the building inwards a little bit to kind of give us more options along Lake. And I'm not so sure what to do about Maple at this point, but I hope that we are able to at least, get Kedzie online and maybe address Lake, and Maple may be, more of a residential where we can get more windows on the second floor, or maybe if we shrink the building in a little bit, that may be a way to get, maybe another plaza or something small in there. But I'm not exactly sure at this point, but that was the intent.
Yeah, I don't have any answers for Maple. I just, it needs some love. And if you just do that elevation, and yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but it really feels neglected right now. And that's all I have.
I think that when this building is, comes online, I think a lot of things will kind of take its course. And Maple may be one of those streets that, more probably newer residential renovations and all that stuff will start picking up. And then also probably foot traffic too, coming from Maple to Lake. And that kind of is a form of activation too. Yeah.
We
Sorry, go ahead.
certainly from a design team want it to be active, and we're going to work every way we can to do that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Andre, you want to go next?
I was wondering if you could flip back to the street view on Kedzie looking toward the station. And I do want to also, yeah, just keep going back to the street view of what
The
the rendering.
perspective, Mark, from looking, I think, at the corner.
This
There,
one?
but yeah, that one.
Yes, I do think this is a very good looking building. I think it could, certainly be, icon here for the neighborhood. And I appreciate that you are deliberately gripping the station itself. I did have a question on the overhang on the what appears to be the third level. How far is that overhanging into the sidewalk?
Are we talking about right here?
Actually, further closer to the station.
Close to
In the
station.
background building.
I think in the plans, it's about 12 feet setback, 10 or 12 feet.
I always appreciate when a building does move into, kind of the beyond the property line and the upper levels, but just in this perspective view, it does seem pretty extreme. And
Yeah,
as I
it's
mentioned,
not
I do
all-
like the way you're gripping the station and you're being very deliberate about it, but it does, this perspective view does make it seem a little bit, it seems like an engineering feat to pull off if you can pull it off.
Right.
And maybe Bill's going to cover the cost for that, but I'm not quite sure.
We have we used the sky hook in this presentation. Like again, some of these things we work very quickly. We're going to have changes for sure, but
Sure.
the idea is to maintain the intent here. So, you know, we would be coming back to you. You're likely to see something that has some differences, and the structural part of it will play a big deal in there. And yes, we will need to deal with that and resolve that as well.
Thank you.
Jackie?
Hi, everyone. It's a great looking building, and congratulations, Greg, and great to see you, Mark. Congratulations on everything. I would also just reiterate what Catherine said and encourage you guys to also take a look at Lake Street, because the L is our iconic kind of mode of transportation. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities to embrace that, maybe in a community room or something like that, that I think you have there on the corner, and let, you know, people engage with the L and that form of transportation that is such an iconic part of the Chicago experience. But so I'm looking forward to see what happens on that Lake Street side also.
Hey, Jackie, it's Bill Williams. I don't know if we ever met, but I've seen some of your work. I've been in some of your spaces, particularly the WIT, probably far too often.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, as we were coming up with these schemes, we intentionally thought that, you know, allowing people to look out towards the lake, Lake Street, and that's kind of a way of interacting with the train, you know.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out, you know, I think Greg is probably more familiar with the type of window systems that we need over there, but we were hoping to be able to have, you know, large window open so folks can just see into the building as people are living, and people are also looking outside as the train going by. But on the ground floor level, we also thought about that corner, like how do you address that corner? But the good thing is too, the way the train, the exits are, it's kind of exiting right in front of the building, the main focal point of the building. And I agree on Lake Street, it's pretty dark, it's pretty low rise industrial. And I don't know exactly how that street is gonna develop in the future. But right now, I think it's low scale manufacturing. But it's kind of very difficult to kind of like put some retail, something over there at the moment, or even in the near future. It'd be quite a challenge. And we want our retailers to be successful, you know, putting somebody right on the other side of Lake Street. Given that this area isn't as dense, they will probably be, you know, changing over within a year. So that's something we're still working on. But just the sites, being able to look out and be able to look into the development would be an attraction as people travel and as people look out into the train. That's what the intent.
That'll be a really cool. Yeah.
There has been a number of successful projects in these kinds of situations with public art, you know, where they do like some installation and lighting and things like that. Might be a way as a bit of a stopgap, or, you know, to make something happen, and they're involving it in that way. So,
and
you
also
know,
the curation of the retailers. So the curation of the retailers could potentially make this a destination which can help grow along Lake Street. So we got some interesting retailers and with programs that will, you know, I think that's going to be very important to activate Kinsey and Lake Street to kind of curate this the right way to make it a destination. And then we will see how, you know, things kind of pan out on Lake Street. But I don't know if we will be bold enough to be pioneers on Lake Street. You know, pioneers get slaughtered, settlers prosper. So, you know, we need to let that develop a bit and maybe make it a flexible place where we can convert it to retail at a later point or something. I'm not sure yet.
Thanks.
Logan,
Nicole?
it's also for buildings.
Yeah, thank you. I think my comment is going to go along the lines of the Catherine and Jackie's comments. I truly believe that Ketsi from this perspective looks so incredibly welcoming and beautiful with so many people. So I will challenge you to find a way to bring some of that energy to the Lake Street, because I think Jackie bring the point of how important for Chicago is the train, right? The CTA, the elevator. So there's got to be a way that you can maybe, as Catherine was saying earlier, to change the bike racks room for windows for some kind of welcoming space, the same way that you're giving it that touch to the upper floors that are so close to the train station. But it seems like all the point of the attention of the building is at this corner, which I think it kind of a missed opportunity, because Lake also could be a very interesting corner, even though it's very challenging. And you're trying to make the contrast with the color of the towers, right? And the connection, which I think is beautiful. I'm just worried a bit about the type of materials, as Reed was saying earlier. I am not an architect, so I have no idea how these materials will deal with the winter. And I am a developer of affordable housing, so I see something so beautiful, which I truly believe this is how affordable housing needs to look like. But at the same time, I'm concerned about the cost of building this kind of structure. I don't know if you have idea of how more or less how much could it be the per unit cost, but it's a beautiful building. But don't forget about Lake Street.
We often get accused of, I mean, it's kind of a weird thing, because even sometimes when the nonprofits look at our work, they shy away from us because it looks too good, and they think it's also too expensive. And while we can't fabricate cost, what we like to do, or what I like to say, is we're very judicious about how we spend the money, and we've developed a lot of techniques to get a lot of bang for buck. It hasn't been an easy road, but it's two plus decades of doing it. I'm very confident you're going to get in the end a building that's going to look a lot like this, and we're going to make it work from a budget view too. But I wish I could say I'm a magician and can do things that I can't, but we're going to make our best effort.
I appreciate that.
I'll add too, Wakolda, that we know this is going to be expensive, and we've started budgeting for that, but we also are starting to sort of look at areas. Those of you who worked with me know that I'm focused on that right from day one, or from day -1. So just the overhangs here, I mean, those are big dollars. We need to really look closely at those and see if they're worth the expense, and really just paying attention to where we put the money, because there's only so much money you can do on a project like this. And also potentially looking at, maybe it's fewer units and it's a smaller building, to make the total investment lower. So we've got a lot of work in front of us. I think this is a very preliminary plan, and I don't think we worked through a lot of details. This was an RFQ. So we're going to spend a lot of time digging into this over the next sort of 4 to 6 months.
Thank you.
Thanks. I think I see Reed. Reed, was your hand up?
Sorry, I forgot I had mute on. I'm pretty familiar with Brooke Scarpa's rabbit out of a hat budgeting stuff. And I'm pretty sure that I've seen some of Mark's. I know Mark builds some expensive properties, but I've also seen Mark do work in Detroit that certainly broke the mold of making something work in that city. So I feel confident about that. I also think I look at this and I hear what Wakolda is saying, and I'm concerned for it, but I also look at this and think there's a lot of stuff on these elevations that could go, and the building would still work. you know, and it would work well. If you ripped every single one of those little projecting windows off, for instance, and you just did those tricks in 6 to 12 inches of reveal, you know, internal reveal, it'd cost a whole lot less money and it would have much of the same effect. And even, you know, 2 or 3 of those projections staying would work. But for Greg and Bill, I would really encourage you to try very hard to maintain as much of that corner of the little bit of projection at that corner, the leading corner we're looking at here, because it's a lot. Your building rotates a lot around making that corner work. If you had to lose some of the projection closer to lake, closer to the L, okay, that's fine. Maybe we don't have quite that much of a cantilever on that end, but that front end on the corner there is critical. And the other thing I'd toss out to the developer side of this is, when there's an opportunity, there's always a challenge. And so I think your architects have given you a fantastic opportunity at that corner. And that's also a real challenge. Bill was beginning to describe it. You know, what is the retail reality of that street, and what it can sustain? And that corner, if that restaurant on the corner were a McDonald's, would feel a lot different than if it's a small cafe, or even if it's going to be a McDonald's that you got, or worse, McDonald's is actually a client that will work with its architects and its developers. But if you had a Taco Bell or a Chick-fil-A or something that aren't quite as collaborative, it's going to be incumbent upon you guys to work really hard to sustain the architectural quality there, because you've got a marvelous opportunity being handed to you with the general massing of the building and the general elegance of the expression of the architect. I got to tell you, if this thing gets built, even 60% of it gets built like this, it's going to change everybody's notion of what this kind of project can mean in Chicago, and particularly on the west and south sides.
Yeah, well, we've definitely heard about the public, that corner is important to the city. So I think that's where it all started. So we recognize that. Thanks for the comments though.
All right, thank you. Are there any other comments that, sorry, and in an office with other people, are there any other comments from the committee? Okay, so as there are no other comments from the applicant team, before we adjourn, on behalf of DPD, thank you again for all of your critical thinking and thoughtful comments on this important project. I also wanted to take a moment. This is my last COD meeting, so I've enjoyed working with each and every one of you. Not all of the committee members, but at least, you know, those are on this call. So thank you for making this a pleasant experience.
Josh, we're going to miss you. Thank you very, very
Yes.
much. It's been amazing to work with you on this.
Thank you.
I
For
agree.
people who don't know, Josh is just unbelievably patient and consistent and hardworking and never gives up. That's a real loss to this process.
I'll still be around in DPD, but yeah, so
Yes.
I look forward to working with you all in other capacities. So thank you. But yeah, so this meeting will now come to a close. Thanks for attending and sharing your thoughts, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.